Okay, thank you. I'm going to call to order the Tuesday, January 12th, 2021 meeting of the Middleton Board of Selectmen. It is 7:03 p.m. Just for a reminder for those that are a part of and logged into this meeting this evening, that we are recording and broadcasting both your audio and visual of this meeting. In addition, due to COVID requirements, we are continuing to hold this meeting remotely using Zoom and other methods. So start the meeting. I will first take up the review of warrants number 2114 and 2115. Andy, if you could provide us a little bit of a summary of those.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So 2114 was the warrant from 2 weeks ago, from actually New Year's Eve. On the payroll side of things, $750,586. And you'll notice in there that there is some winter operations costs, some snow removal costs on the top under personnel for $6,572. On bills payable, the total is $977,070. The usual payroll deductions in the amount of $94,408. We have the costs of the police chief recruitment at $10,575. Some additional snow removal in just below the middle of the page there under public works for $31,361. Directly below that for $13,276, the CPR device for the fire station, the fire department rather, and then for MELD, $602,739 for purchase of power. On warrant 2115, which is this week's warrant, on payroll, we have $710,830. A little bit of snow cost in there at $2,458 on the payroll end of things. For bills payable, fairly modest bills payable this period, $367,439. Payroll deductions being more than a quarter of that at $98,654. Down the about 2/3 of the way down, salt cost for DPW associated with snow removal for $18,282. COVID testing under the Board of Health for $39,550. That's all covered by the CARES Act. And then a little bit further down under MELD, $51,523 for purchase of power. So Sarah Wood has reviewed these and asks the board's affirmative action.
Okay. Any questions?
Move to accept as presented.
Second.
Okay. I believe is Costa our secretary? No, Tim is the secretary. So if you could call the roll, Tim.
Okay. Mr. Prentakis,
Yes.
Mr. Cranston,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay, that passed unanimously. I'm going to take a brief break from the agenda. I should have opened with this. Some folks in town may know, if not, I'm sure word will be coming out shortly. A longtime Middleton Selectman that retired from the board probably about 12, 14 years ago, Joe Pascucci, unfortunately passed suddenly earlier last week. His services were over the weekend and was laid to rest yesterday on Monday the 11th. I've had the opportunity, I knew Joe since the early 1990s. While I didn't have an opportunity to serve with him on the board, I got, during my time in the legislature, I got to work with him as a selectman and saw his commitment to the town. I know several members of the board today have had the opportunity to serve with him and know Joe. And, I express my deepest sympathy to his daughters and his family on this untimely passing, but really want to express my thanks to Joe for all that he did for this town, and know that this is a very sad time for his family. So I was wondering if we could actually just take a very brief moment of silence. And again, I apologize. I should have opened the meeting with this. Thank you very much. So I will move, at that point, we have in our packet, we have copies of minutes from our last two meetings, which was on December 15th and December 22nd. I'm not sure if there are any comments or additions or amendments to those minutes.
Move to accept as presented.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, take the roll, Tim.
Mr. Prokopis,
Yes.
Mr. Kresge,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay, Andy, Town Administrator report and updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy New Year to everybody, first of all. Hopefully everybody had a healthy and safe and happy holiday season. We spoke before the holidays about neighbors in need. We usually do as the holidays roll around. This year, Neighbors in Need was able to help 36 families and 63 children in Middleton. So pretty comparable, I think, to what they've done in recent years. So certainly a whole bunch of different challenges this year than what they usually have to deal with. So our congratulations to them and our thanks to the coordinators, Judy Gallery and Mary Rockwood, for all they did for pulling that together. Nomination papers are out and available for anybody who's interested in running for office. This year's election is May 18th, and the full list of openings and all the details for running are available on the website and through the town clerk's office. The state is in the process of setting up mass vaccination sites for COVID vaccines. It's been a little unclear as things have gone along how much they were going to do and how much was going to be left to locals. It looks like they're going to try to the state is going to try to take on a large portion of the vaccination. So we have reason to believe that there'll be a vaccination site in the Tri-Town area. We're still waiting on some details. We hope that maybe before the end of the week we'll have clearer information on that. I do want to give a shout out to all the first responders and everybody who coordinated the first responder vaccination yesterday at Topsfield Fairgrounds. I think there were about 300 first responders who went there from the Tri-Town and other North Shore communities. So good to get those folks vaccinated and safe as they continue to do what we expect them to do and what they love doing. So it is, obviously vaccination is the quickest, safest route to herd immunity, which is what will help us best to get past COVID and get on to the other side. So this is the time of year, and this is the particular week that we spend a lot of time on, or almost all of our time on, the budget. Sarah Wood, Tanya, and I have been meeting this week with department heads on their budgets, reviewing their budget requests, and starting to put together the budget that the board and the finance committee will look at on February 6th. So we'll be doing that. The meetings will be most of this week. There may be a couple that carry over into next week or some follow-up meetings, but most of it will take place this week. We've tried to compress the meeting components of this and give ourselves, particularly Sarah, more time to sort of work through the details and get us to something approaching a balanced budget. Or obviously oftentimes we're not balanced by the time we get to the budget summit in February, just because there are a number of unknowns at this early stage. So we do expect that the February 6th operating budget summit, as well as the March 6th capital budget summit, will be via Zoom, will be remote. I would also expect the March 25th warrant hearing and, budget hearing and warrant reading will also be remote. But we'll see as we get a little bit closer to that. So we'll keep you up to date on on how things are going with the budget. As I mentioned, there are a number of unknowns, as there always are at this time. We would normally expect to be getting the governor's H1 budget, House 1 budget next week. I'm not sure it's going to happen quite that quickly, although he is obligated by law to release his budget by the end of January. I think it's the end of January, 25th or the end, I forget which. So a number of wild cards this year. Obviously, the potential for federal aid is out there. Certainly would be welcome. The extension of the CARES Act funding is certainly helpful for us, but it remains to be seen with a number of moving pieces and unknowns how things will shake out. Obviously, any federal aid is going to take some time to work its way through Congress. So we'll see how that goes. We'll keep an eye on that, and I'll keep the board and the public up to date as things unfold. That's what I've got for updates today.
So Andy, I know the successful first responder vaccination clinic that happened at the Topsfield Fair and Tri-Town with, I think, Hamilton and Wenham included as well.
Mhm.
So while the first super vaccination site is opening up at Gillette Stadium, I know it's going to ramp up as more vaccine comes into the state. Are we not thinking that local boards of health or combined boards of health working together will not get vaccine like they have gotten in the past for flu vaccine clinics? That are we not expecting that to happen?
We are planning as if it will. It's a little unclear at this time if it's going to happen that way. We had a planning meeting last week with Derek Fullerton to talk about how this could roll out, and he's working with his colleagues in Boxford and Topsfield on the assumption that they will be running a tri-town, or maybe something like yesterday's where it's tri-town plus a couple of others. But we just got word today that the state is looking to expand its presence, and from my perspective, I think that's a better way to go for the state to take it on. From cost perspective, I think that's better for us. Our public health, local public health people are, they've been dealing with this for practically, 10 months now. So it's a lot of logistics to run a vaccination site. And it would be, for the Tri-Town, it would be certainly multi-day event to get everybody vaccinated, or get everybody who wants to be vaccinated. So it's a lot of work, both for the health officials as well as public safety folks that would be helping them. The other piece of it is who's actually administering the shots, and so it's it's been challenging for local health officials to find contact tracers and nurses that can help through all of this stuff. So I'm optimistic that the state is gonna take this on. Like I said, we have reason to believe that that's the case, and I'm hopeful that that they can do it all and take this burden off of our shoulders.
Now, I appreciate the only reason why I'm asking this, Andy, is I know with the extension of the CARES Act dollars, the dollars that we thought we're going to see expire at the end of the year are is back into our access coffers. And while there's going to be likely a lot of competing interests on where those dollars go, if the volume of vaccine in the new federal administration starts coming into the state much faster than it has to date, I want to ensure that if there is an opportunity that we can expedite for our residents or the residents of Tri-Town. I mean, I will tell you, I was one of the ones that took advantage of the COVID testing that happened in Middleton. Our family had gone through a potential exposure. Luckily, we were all fine, but that was run like a well-oiled machine. And I get testing is not vaccination, but I really wondered if we were going to be able to do a large scale testing in our town and do it well. And Derek and the vendors he brought in did a great job. And, I don't want to lose the opportunity if, if vaccine is coming in fast and there's an opportunity that our residents, even if it's more of our higher risk residents early on, those 65 plus, which are later in phase 2, or 75 plus at the beginning of phase 2, that we could possibly expedite that. And I know we've worked with the Tri-Town to bring in a part-time nurse that is spread amongst the Tri-Town communities. But if there's a possibility that even the 3 of us could band together to do something around vaccine, I'd welcome that immediately, because I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to have more vaccine coming in than we're going to have going out.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's going to be easy for the state and local health officials to get just overwhelmed by the numbers and just not be able to push it out as fast as it needs to be. So I think there will be opportunities for us to do things, even if the state comes in and does a mass vaccination or a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think there'll be opportunities because the phasing is shifting. I heard today that it's going to be 65 and older rather than 75 and older.
Possibly.
And so I think you may end up with these sort of niche populations that maybe they get vaccinated early on, but some of them didn't qualify, but they're not necessarily part of the one of the other groups that would be normally next, but they could get into a mass site. So, or we could help on the local level with that. So we want to make sure that we get our populations vaccinated as soon as possible. And obviously with most of these vaccines, it's a double dose. It's the initial dose and then a booster. So it's twice as much work in most respects. So, and the other challenge is making sure that people come back and get the booster. I read a stat not too long ago that the normal vaccine rate for the seasonal flu is something like 60 or 65%. And we certainly would want more than that for COVID. But we also don't want 65% or something like that to only come back for the booster. So we're going to need to do some outreach and really, do our work to get people, whether it's at a
I know there's going to be a lot of competing, so to speak, for the remaining CARES Act dollars that are left, and obviously logical in needed areas. I just want to make sure that if we think this is an opportunity, that we have at least something sequestered that we have available. I just don't want to see vaccine come and us not have the dollars to do so.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Fully agree.
Any other questions from the board for Andy and his report? Okay, thank you. I know we have on our agenda any public comment items. I know I think I see folks here as part of the meeting for scheduled items in the agenda, but I'm not sure if we have anybody, Tanya, that is part of the public
Chairman,
comment.
we do have one call-in user. If you have a public comment, now would be the time to unmute yourself. Other than that, I don't believe we have anyone.
Okay, well, we'll move next to the agenda, which is item number 3, with our newly elected state representative, Sally Kerins from the 13th Essex District. Representative, it's great to see you again. As many of the folks at home know, Middleton has 2 state representatives. The district, one of our precincts is represented by the 13th Essex, which includes West Peabody and Danvers. The other part of Middleton is represented by the district that Representative Brad Jones presently holds, which is North Reading, Linfield, Middleton. And so we are doubly lucky that we get twice the representation, and but we're also lucky that we have folks that have a lot of experience in the legislature. So Sally, welcome back to the House. I had the opportunity to serve with you back when I represented Middleton, and you were representing in Danvers. and a portion of Peabody. You are always a thoughtful and very engaged legislator. And we are very lucky that not only, many people will run for office and say, I can hit the ground running. There's no need for on-the-job training. You truly embody that. The things that you worked on prove that you know how to navigate the legislature, but you also know the importance of the relationship between the legislature and the local boards of selectmen or city council. So welcome back. And I appreciate you coming before the board this evening to, start off your term. I know you were just sworn in, I believe, last week. And when I saw a lot on social media, it was a little bit of a different swearing in ceremony with only a handful in person and a lot of folks doing it just like you're meeting with us this evening through a Zoom setting. But welcome back and welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brian. It's good to see you. Thanks very much. I'll leave it at that and quit while I'm ahead. Great remarks. Thank you. It's so different in the time of COVID. It really is not so different than when you and I were there, or any of us, Ted, or any of the previous reps from this area, but the COVID changes are dramatic. So we had the swearing in. 17 of us are new. And so we were, which I thought was very nice. They had us come into the chamber, but no guests, no family, no one. And then the others were like this, only it was some other platform. It wasn't, I don't think it was Zoom. I think it was Teams. And the audio was really tough. So it was just hard. And but the point is, it's all official now, we're done. And just was saying it's been nonstop since like the very next day. And to your earlier conversation, I happened to be on things come in really quickly. So I got an email today at about 11 saying, oh, there's going to be a call with Secretary Sutters and the vaccine advisory group. And if legislators would like to call in, please do. So great, got some really great information. I think not a lot of it might be new to you, but I did want to just mention a couple of things.
Yeah,
One is that they are going to continue some of those. There were 119 of those first responder clinics. Yesterday, they went beautifully. And I think about 60 of them are going to continue. I want to say Mary Lou Sutters gave that number. 65 years old and up, yes, are going to be a priority. There'll be $9 billion, to your point, Brian, $9 billion coming from the feds for the vaccinations, which will be really helpful. What else? They are focused, of course, on the skilled nursing facilities, all of those. They're making good headway. So there are 470,000 doses that have been sent our way for a population of 6 million, right? 5.7.
5.7, 5.8.
Yeah. So they are very aware of the need to get these into people's arms, very much so. And as you had pointed out, or some maybe Andy had said it, it's not like a flu clinic. And one of the reasons is you have to watch people for 15 minutes after they get it, unlike the flu. So they are very mindful. And someone asked, I think it was Barry Feingold from Andover, said, okay, well, who owns the logistics on this? Because it's so much to get done. It's something like $1 million a month, right? They're going to do, I think that's right. They want to try to have 35,000 a day is the goal. So they're going to have these 6 big sites, massive sites, and then Gillette. And so I have a couple of concerns. One is it's all by appointment, which you can understand why that is the case.
Mhm.
but there's a part of me that it makes my head swim to think of the ways in which that could go sideways. So I'm sure they're thinking about it. There's a 20-person team inside of DPH that this is what they're doing. A major message that Mary Lou Sutters wanted everyone to take away was no resident should be charged anything. No one should be paying anything. I mean, there's a cost and that'll be borne by, state government, federal government, but residents should know. And I mention that because we've all heard of the scams that are out there, and this would be another prime opportunity for scammers out there to try to, I don't know, jump the line, pay 20. No one should be paying anything for a vaccine. So that's, okay, that's where we stand. I think, I think I hit the highlights of that. A lot of debate about, a fair amount of debate over who's getting into which categories. I've, connected with some people. I've hearing from funeral homes, and funeral home directors and workers for some reason were not put into phase 1. And they are really front-facing COVID. I think that's the right terminology. They are in and out of hospitals, hospice settings, nursing homes. And so it would be nice for them. They're trying to get moved into phase 1. And then someone asked, well, why is Massachusetts, why are we so slow? How come everyone else is faster? And Mary Lou Sutters said, well, we don't have a homogeneous state like Vermont, New Hampshire. We have a much more diverse. And so it's just much more challenging to get it out. And then of course there's reluctance. So they're working too with partners and I think Walgreens and CVS. Walgreens and CVS are, as we probably all know, the major partners in this. They're working with them on messaging to assure people that they should feel confident in getting the vaccine. So, that's sort of the health piece of the public health component, I guess. Someone mentioned, you will probably know, Andy, and you local officials might even know before we would, where some of these other sites will be. And I would imagine the fairgrounds will completely, I say that with no basis in fact, other than it just seems so logical that it seems to have gone really well. It can accommodate. It's been notable to me, we don't have a heavy county structure. So from the get-go, when there was talk at the federal level about getting these vaccines out to counties, I thought, well, we don't really operate that way in Massachusetts. And I do think one of the challenges in this is that we don't have a great public health structure in place to do this stuff. I don't know, Brian, you and I had just gotten there, I think, when we got rid of county government.
Yeah.
Memory serves.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, we obviously won't operate in a county structure, but, I think there are some larger health departments in some of the bigger cities and much bigger communities that may be in a position to manage some of this. And to my earlier comments to Andy, I think the 3 tri-town communities and what was just done on the first responder, police, fire, EMS, vaccine clinic that happened over the last 2 days at Topsville Fair is an example where, while we may have a very small and hardy public health department led by a public health director and some volunteers and part-time staff, I think when we merge together and kind of work together, we can actually quickly become a lot stronger. And we're not the Boston Public Health Commission or the Lowell Public Health Department, but I think we've proven in the past we can do a lot of things. So I mean, for what it's worth, my comment to you, Representative, back to that kind of the decision makers on the vaccine commission is understand that for some towns that think they have the bandwidth or want to put their shoulder against the wheel, we want to help with that, whether it's our own clinic banded together or helping at some of these larger um, larger mega sites that are going to be created. And, to your comment around, having to pre-register, I mean, I think Partners Healthcare or Brigham, MGH Brigham, as they're called now, I mean, they had some fits and starts in the beginning with their process, and it looks to have been greatly improved. I hope the state has kind of looked at that and realized that, once the gates open for phase 2, there's going to be a huge amount of concern. I can see a lot of children and grandchildren quickly trying to get their parents and grandparents registered once that phase 2 opens up to 65 and 75 and above. And I just want to make sure that those opportunities are open for folks to be able to go to a location. 35,000 a day may not sound like a lot, but if you think about how many hours in a day in that 15 to 30 minute period of having to monitor somebody, that's a lot to happen in one day.
And interestingly, I had an email late today from a fellow in Danvers who said, look, my wife is an RN, retired. She wants to help. She wants to help put shots in people's arms. She can't seem to get connected to the right entity. So there's that whole part too. And which is why it's appealing to do something to say, look, we'll do it here. But I think DPH is probably, I think they're doing a pretty good job. They've kind of figured out strategically and in terms of scale what they can manage. But we do want to take advantage of all of our local willingness, capacity, know-how. So I will bring that message back to them that, you've got local folks who are, as you just said, we want to put our shoulder to the wheel. We want to be part of the solution here. We can do this. We could, give us the materials. I imagine that the public health, apparatus, to the extent that, again, we don't have the same kind of robust public health structure in place that we once did. But it would be nice to take advantage, as you're saying, Brian, we want to be like to do our own thing to, at least to be participants in the vaccination process. So I'll happily take that back and, to see what degree they can take advantage of it. Yeah.
So I would actually open up to the board for some items of, this isn't a late Christmas list that we want to give our new representative, but we also understand the times. I mean, you weren't there, but I give a ton of credit to the last legislature and the governor for holding us really as harmless as possible in the local aid process that was really delayed from a July budget to later in the year, almost at the end of the calendar year. And for many of us, and I see we have our town moderator on the call as well, for many of us last year, we're trying to figure out how we were going to get town meeting done, never mind the fact of, what would a big local aid look like for us. So I mean, the first on the agenda I'd like to bring, and this is probably not the first time you'll ever hear this or the last time in your tenure, is doing the best to hold us as harmless as possible in the local aid process. Now, I understand clearly that the state has taken a significant revenue hit, albeit dollars have come to the state from the federal government from the money printing machine that is somewhere in DC. But, we're dealing with the same hit, not to maybe the same extent, but some of our local revenues around meals tax and lodging tax. I mean, our lodging tax revenue has basically completely evaporated. Our meals tax has taken a hit. I give a lot of our restaurants and our residents and area residents credit for doing their best to support those, but we're taking a hit on that. At the same time, our level of needs haven't decreased. In fact, many of our departments have morphed into ways of doing things remotely. Our library, our council on aging, the number of services that our council on aging has supported folks with post-COVID has been pretty dramatic. So this is my plea for, the sooner we get some clarity on local aid, will be better. It will help us better understand if we need to really ratchet down in our belts this budget cycle, or if we really have to talk about what a big cut will mean to some of the priorities that we really put off over the last year because of the uncertainty of COVID.
Understood. And, I was on the finance committee in Danvers, and so we were same position that you folks are in. And I too was pretty pleasantly surprised at the budget. I don't know Aaron Michaelowitz. He's the House Ways and Means Chair, but he's very impressive. He's very smart. Ways and Means chairs are always very smart. But I think they did it, and he did a quick back of the envelope kind of overview of the budget for the coming year. It was on a call in November, and I remember coming away from it thinking, maybe not so terrible. But I'm also very leery of wishful thinking, because we know that same in Danvers, the meals revenue, a lot of revenue just not there. And yes, hats off to the libraries, and also just everyone in local government kind of making it work from wherever you are. Yeah, it's been very trying. We'll see where it goes, but I can tell you without reservation, the appetite there is a resolute feeling about not allowing cities and towns to be dealing with decimated budgets. I mean, it's not going to happen, but and I'm ecstatic that the numbers in the United States Senate are now sufficient that we will be able to look to the federal government for the kind of help that should have been there, I think, sooner. I think we all think it, but for Mitch McConnell. And so now we can look forward to perhaps that funding specifically for cities and towns. But point well taken. I'm on it. I will bring that message back, and nobody wants to see cities and towns doing the big L word. Just,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I know it's tough. And for the Andy Sheehan's and the Steve Barthas and the Ted Betancourts of the world, it's tricky territory. I know. I'm sure you're going to concur, Andy, with Brian's. I mean, I'm sure that is there anyone here who doesn't agree? I mean, right? We all sort of appreciate the acute challenges that our cities and towns have. And, but I think too, the legislature does as well. By the way, I have to agree with you. I was pretty amazed at the work that they got done. They did an economic development bill, a transportation bond issue, bigger than that. Really big things. I said to Tom Walsh, would you guys please slow down in there? I mean, leave some work for the rest of us so that when we get there, but there's plenty.
To that point, I mean, we kind of slowed down a little bit last year going into our annual town meeting, because we didn't know, there was a lot of what ifs. I think at that point going into town meeting, we knew this wasn't a full week bend the curve and things would be fine. When this first started, we started talking, when this first started, we were just finalizing what our revenue could potentially look like and what our prelim budget. We quickly changed with that, as did our finance committee, and quite honestly, a lot of credit to our two school committees that did the same thing. But we have a lot of priorities that we've put off that we can't put off any longer. As you know, Representative, we recently purchased the former golf course. I don't know if you were a par 3 golf player, if so, we apologize, but it was a phenomenal opportunity for the town where we obtained a real jewel of the community that really, instead of being developed into something, is actually going to solve a long time and a long-term need for us around infrastructure. A police station that used to be your station in Danvers that you gave to us for $1 back in the 70s, a council and aging facility that is woefully inadequate, a fire station where we have equipment outside under tarps, and in the future a town hall that we recently just had to put some money in because of some structural issues that were reaching a point of being dangerous. So we've got some big needs ahead of us. The legislature recently approved some dollars to help us with some planning around that, albeit not a lot, but it was much appreciated, especially in the midst of all of this. And, you know, that's probably our biggest priority that's coming down the pike, that is going to take both dollars as well as an understanding of continuity in both our local aid and our budget picture going forward. So the sooner the legislature, at least, you know, the governor's House 1 will usually be the first start of the process.
Right.
If his local aid comes in at a good level funded, or even a small increased number, I feel comfortable the House and Senate will continue to follow suit and possibly add to that. But, you know, that is probably our biggest priority. And this is it will be a large development that'll happen right in the heart of the town, right on Route 114, a state roadway that, you know, I hope the state will understand the importance to this, not just to the town, but for the entire area.
I will be almost in walking distance, not quite walking distance, but my son took golf lessons up there once when he was about, I don't know, 10 or 11, and he'd had a lame breakfast of some kind of sugary cereal, and he passed out. We had to go up and get him. But anyway, that's my memory of the golf course. I know that is a huge priority for the town, and I will be absolutely keeping a watchful eye over opportunities to, you know, kind of steer, just being attentive, being mindful, being aware of opportunities to put an oar in. What's your timeline on that roughly? Or
Well, Andy, if you want to give a little bit of an update of where we are.
I'm just curious, really, as a
Yeah.
neighbor.
Yeah, so
I live not far from there.
The plan is to bring it to town meeting in May, and debt exclusion vote the following week, also in May. So May of this year. So, you know, that would be for the design and the construction. Design will take 9 to 12 months. So would be going out to bid ideally sometime around this time a year from now.
Great.
Yeah, any inside information, I shouldn't use that term, but you know what I
No,
mean.
but yeah, let's all be, you know, as I said, watching and focusing on places to help it along.
Yeah, so we have a committee that has been working on this that really has, you know, started off looking at what needs were, as well as our current facilities, and really what would be needed in a modern police and a modern fire department. And not so much a council on aging senior center, but a community center that is multi-generational, that and it's hard to see this tonight because we're all at home, but we suffer from a significant shortage of public meeting space in this town. While the library's kind of been the heart of the community, you know, they were really maxed out on space, and be able to support not just town board meetings and other items like that, but even just community meetings and other activities. So this is to solve a whole slew of needs, never mind the least of which is really outdated facilities. So, you know, I'm going to say this out loud. We've talked at, when Ted was our rep at length, and Representative Jones and others. So we've been the town that has taken on a lot of state facilities. I mean, we have the Essex County Jail in this community. We have a very large and brand new DYS facility that was brought into this community. Again, both of these within striking distance of each other off of Route 62 and Maple Street. The new Essex Agricultural and Technical School, which I think has actually been a jewel for this area, has you know, butted right up against our town line there, again on Route 62. We've had been working at some point to see if we could get some of the update and traffic issues on Route 62 and Maple Street addressed. You know, we do have a bridge that needs to be replaced that we hope at some point will go to planning phase and be built. It's the bridge on Maple Street, not far from Liberty Street. But we can also have Andy and Tanya provide some information on kind of the history around that area. I mean, we had at the time the Secretary of Economic and Housing Affairs come in and actually, clearly understood at the time, a lot of development happened in this town and state facilities, but we didn't really have any say over it. And if the jail was a private facility, the DYS was a private facility, if that was a private school that was being built there, there would have been some positive effects around traffic mitigation, lights, roadway improvement, sidewalks, items like that, didn't get done. And we appreciate that, for example, the jail's a large employer in the town. It still has had an effect on the community overall. So that's probably another long time item that, while we're not putting it all on your shoulders, Sally, and saying, we know you can solve it for us, it's just an item that we continue to pick away at and bring to the attention of the state of, a true effect could actually make a big difference in the town.
No, and you know what? I hear you on that. And it's funny because I point to certainly the Aggie, the Tech, and NFI, which is, I'm on Center Street parallel to 114 off of Dayton. So it's kind of at the end of my street. Gregory House Station is like 2 miles at the end of my street. I often feel that the state has treated Danvers as such an afterthought. We are the home to an armory, a state police barracks, well, not complex, but the old highway building, now occupied by the state police, community college, former state hospital, countless highway on-ramps, some of them dangerous. So I hear you on that. I really do. I really feel that one of my goals as our state rep is to get the attention of state decision makers and make them aware that every building that you put in, every time you expand, that's traffic. That's traffic on 62. That's traffic on 114. 114 is its own project in itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And at some point, state and Mass Highway, or actually Mass DOT, is going to have to address that. So let me add one more point to that. So the Essex County Correctional Facility in Middleton is the only jail or lockup facility in the entire Commonwealth that the town does not receive a pilot payment on. And that occurred way back in the day when the jail was brought in. And there was a whole slew of pieces that caused that. One of them was, I remember later on having a conversation with the then legislator from Salem and explaining why this had to happen. And he explained to me why it would never happen. But I just bring that to your attention as well. And not that, the pilot payment is going to make or break the town, but as you can imagine, for the.
No, but fair is fair.
No,
right?
There has been a fairness issue there, but I want you to imagine the number of times that our fire department and our ambulance services run as part of our fire department is responding. They were glad to do it. I mean, they're part of our town, and it's the right thing to do. But that has, if you look at the volume of our calls at our fire department, it is the far away the largest number of our calls is to that facility. And while we have a great relationship with the sheriff and the previous sheriffs that has served there, it's to your point on Danvers, we have a lot of state and county, although counties don't exist anymore, facilities here that we bear the brunt of, and some recognition, a pilot payment honestly would go a long way.
All right, I'm glad you, oh boy, we could go on for hours.
Yeah, so I'm going to be quiet and see if the other board members want to add
Same, I'm all ears. I'm sorry, but really glad you brought it up.
I'll bring up my, pet project, which is, the Community Preservation, Act. We have, it has been of great help to the town over the years since we adopted it in 2004. So maintaining the strength and the state match percentages from that, is of great help to the town. And, it's something I bring up annually with whoever is representing, Middleton.
So I and some other folks in Danvers tried unsuccessfully to have our town adopt CPA. And we couldn't do it.
Mm.
And I look around and here is Middleton with a beautiful, I watched it, someone sent me, did a beautiful ceremony in the spring. It's at the, help me out, not the canoe launch, rail trail.
Yeah, the rail trail.
It was on your rail trail. Peabody created its rail trail with CPA money. They got in so early that they had a huge amount of state funding for their rail trail. Danvers will not buy into it. We do have a great rail trail. And I think we're now going to work together to get them connected. But I think the CPA is marvelous. And I'm only sorry that Danvers wouldn't do it. I think it's a great, great tool for preservation, great projects, historic projects. You see them all over the state, all over the state. Rockport, down on Martha's Vineyard. Hi, Tim. Yes, point well taken. Tell me some other things I'm just curious, in Middleton that you've been able to do with CPA funds.
Well, it's, with our library renovation and expansion, because
Beautiful.
it pays, some of that, debt, since it was a historic building. We've been able to put money into some of our other historic buildings. We've been able to buy, open space,
Yeah, great.
and helped our, housing authority with, some of the projects that, they didn't have other source of funding for. So, I mean, our campaign, to get people to vote for the CPA in 2004 was labeled an alternative funding source for Middleton's capital projects. And it really has been that. So,
For example, the property that is being purchased, was purchased at the golf course. A portion of the future debt service will receive some infusion from the CPA because a portion of that land is going to stay as open space.
Oh, see, that's great. That's great. Yeah, congratulations. That's wonderful. Yes.
So I mean, in 2005, planning department, invited me to speak with some Danvers residents who are organizing an effort to, get the CPA approved. So I spoke with them, gave them advice on how we got it passed here in Middleton. Unfortunately, that effort, didn't get it. And I know you had a subsequent effort that also didn't succeed. So keep trying.
But there has been some larger communities that have recently adopted the Community Preservation Act. So really, to Costa's point, really hope the legislature and the administration will understand that while there's a larger pool that is in the Community Preservation Act, really for those communities that very early on adopted this and kind of drove the agenda and really helped other towns do what has been very successful program. I just don't want to see that pool of money get watered down with these larger communities that have entered and having an effect across the board of everybody seeing a reduction in match dollars.
Yeah, that'll be one to watch. It will be a harder sell this year, I would imagine, local aid, CPA. I mean, so it's a balancing act for sure, but point well taken. And kudos to you for really maximizing on the opportunity. I will now go back and tell everyone in Danvers, hey, Middleton's doing all kinds of great things. They're a CPA community.
Chair of our CPA committee and does a really great job of not just, and we as a town and his board has really opened it up to when residents and other boards and committees come in with some ideas of, let us know. This is not, three people making a decision for the whole town. It's been very open from the beginning, and we protected a lot of open space. We purchased open space. I think the housing authority relationship was great. These were buildings that really needed update, and they didn't have the wherewithal or the financial resources. And we made an investment because a portion of our dollars are for affordable housing.
Bravo.
So Tim, anything you want to add or?
Hi Sally, how you doing?
Hi, Tim.
That'll teach you to ask a question of the Board of Selectmen of Middleton, because you have a comfortable seat. What I'm going to ask you is almost the impossible. When Ted took over due to redistricting, he hadn't been our rep in a long time, but very quickly his face was everywhere. I think in this time of a little bit of trouble, I think making yourself known around town would do a world of good. I think that it's so hard with COVID now, but I think people need to see their state rep, whether it's through Zoom or through something. And hopefully you'll have time to show up, but because there are no events for you to show up at. But I'm just saying that I hope that you try to make yourself available, because people do want to see it and do want to talk to you.
Thank you, Tim. I should do a Zoom, a community coffee clatch over Zoom, and just to do what we're doing now, just to share and listen. My whole focus was I sort of wrapped up the campaign, which meant running around collecting signs for a long time. And then had a slew of thank you notes. So kind of buttoned that up, and then was kind of watching the legislative session at the end because it was educational. And now off we go. So, but now that I'm digging in, settling in, of course, we're still not in the building, but I do have a legislative aide. She's terrific. Her name is Catherine McGee. She just started. We both have just started a week ago. And of course, everything's remote. Everything is remote. So, but that doesn't mean that we can't do a remote kind of community conversation. So if you guys would come, I would love to put one together. I think that could be neat. I feel as though I know Middleton. I mean, just because it's always been there and I've always lived here, and I know Shirley Renard. Who else do I need to know? I mean, I know the Renards. I know Shirley Renard, and my parents' old pal Ethel Lee and Norman Nathan and so forth. But I got to know some folks during the campaign, and that was neat. Folks associated with the library, Claudia Johnson and Eileen, the clerk. And so I'd like to build on it. So point well taken. I'll set it up. I'll be back to you.
Good. Well, we really appreciate you coming in.
I know. I hope I haven't taken too much time. I've enjoyed it thoroughly.
It's good. I mean, the thing that I have found, to Tim's point, Ted was a great partner with this town. And for Ted, and I understand you represent one half of the town. Ted, I remember calling Ted on an item once, and then halfway through him helping on the issue for the town, I realized it was technically Brad Jones's side of Middleton. Ted never once said, well, hey, that's not my area. And he and Brad, I know, work very closely in a lot of the items and keeping us up to date. But,
Good.
I found for all the years that I represented Middleton, when they reached out because it was a need for the town, it usually was, it was really important. And I don't think this is a town that just comes in and asks for the sense of asking. It's, to Tim's point, is knowing that you're our legislator and you're out and about and listening and supporting our constituents and our residents is half the battle. And I understand how important that is. So thank you. I really wish you all the luck. Like I said in the beginning, we're lucky that we don't have anybody that's getting on the job training. You're ready to roll and know the process and more importantly, know the rules, which is how you get things done in that building. So I appreciate it.
Well, you're welcome. And I thank you all for being so, likewise. I mean, I've always, from the get-go, and Andy reached out to me and said, the board would like to have you come say hello. I said, great, I'm all for it. So let's keep the conversation going. Let's not let it be just a one-off. Let's kind of stay in contact, in conversation and discussion, and that way we can make things better for Middleton.
Okay, well, Representative, I really appreciate it, and all the best.
Thank you all. Okay.
Thank you.
And frequently, I hope.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, bye now.
Okay, so next on the agenda is item 4, which is to review the January 28th, 2021 special town meeting warrant. And we will also be entertaining and acting upon a motion to both open and close the warrant. So Andy?
Yeah, so this is the warrant, the town meeting that is, must be called because it was a petition with, a citizen's petition with more than 200 signatures. Whenever there is a petition of that size, it requires that the board call a special town meeting within 45 days. So the 45th day is January 28th. So the deadline for, which is a Thursday, the deadline for posting is this Thursday. So we needed to get it done tonight. We've got 2 articles on, and the first is the petition that sort of initiated the need for the town meeting, which is the petition with respect to filling the position of police chief. We talked about it before the holidays. Town meeting doesn't have the authority to do what is being asked of it, but nonetheless, under the law, we're required to still hold the meeting. So there's that. And then the other one is the petition that was submitted by Eric Cudmore. I guess it was about a year ago now. I didn't look to see exactly when it came in. That was going to be on, I think initially it was going to be on initially it was going to be on the annual.
Mhm.
And then we asked his okay to take it off the annual and address it at the next town meeting that we had. In the sense of the motion on the floor was that we would take it up at the next town meeting. We didn't say at the annual in 21 or anything like that. So we've put that on as well. Barbara Pacelli is here tonight on the call in case you have any logistical questions for her.
So Andy,
Will we be actually able to hold a meeting January 28th?
I will defer to Barbara.
I think once you issue the warrant under chapter 3910A, then the responsibility shifts to me to make a determination in consultation with you, with Andy, and with public health officials as to whether there is a public health or safety issue that would preclude us from going forward with having that meeting. And if I determine that there is, then the statute allows me to continue the meeting, but only for a period of 30 days. There's nothing, though, that sets forth how many times I can continue a meeting for 30-day periods. I think I can't remember when you last met, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, we seemed to talk about the fact that it's not going to be prudent to have a meeting. There's really not an indoor location that would be feasible to hold a meeting at this point. I think Andy's made it pretty clear that the schools don't want us. And there's clearly not an outdoor venue in the middle of January in Greater Boston that would be prudent for us to have a meeting. Also, I've talked to Derek, and he reminded me that the surge we're in now is probably the most serious surge we've seen since the beginning of the pandemic. So I think that it would not be prudent or in the best interest of Middleton residents to try to hold a meeting. So it would be my intention, once the warrant issues, to declare the meeting recessed and continue it for a period of 30 days.
So how much before the meeting would you want to make the determination about holding it? So, if, the January 28th, it's not feasible to hold, you continue it for 30 days. How close to that date would you want to make your next decision about whether or not it's feasible? Or is there any timeline in the law as to when you have to do that?
The statute suggests that the moderator should issue a declaration continuing the meeting with as much advance notice as possible. So are you talking about for the purposes of this meeting or any future deferral?
The future, yeah. So from January 28th, it's continued 30 days, like the end of February.
Correct.
So
I would consult with you at some point prior to the 28th of February, get your input, consult with our illustrious town administrator, the town clerk, the director of public health, and then make a determination as to whether we thought it would be in the best interest of Middleton town residents to continue it for another 30 days.
Okay.
I mean,
So
in all probability, I think we can pretty well anticipate that we're not going to be in a much better situation COVID-wise in February than we are now. With any luck, hopefully maybe the surge will have leveled off a little bit, but I don't anticipate we're going to be able to have a meeting in the schools, and we're not going to be able to probably have a meeting outside at the end of February.
Yeah.
So I don't anticipate a meeting at the end of February or even probably the end of March. I can anticipate a situation where we might end up combining this meeting with our May meeting, if it comes to that.
Okay.
But I'll look to you all for your guidance.
Yeah, so we had actually made a decision that we were going to have a special during the annual meeting in, well, we hope is May, for some technical changes to previous items in the town meeting, but originally it was also to take up Mr. Cudmore's article. So to that item, Andy, I know, did you have a conversation with Eric? Is when we had kind of made the ladies and gentlemen agreement with him to not bring it up in the annual last year due to really trying to expedite town meeting, given where we were in COVID, that we would take it up at the next town meeting or the next special. Does he want this to be a part of this called special, or does he want this to be annual?
I haven't spoken to Eric about this. The way I looked at it was the motion that was voted on by town meeting back on June 24th was pretty affirmative that we would put it on the next town meeting warrant. I think when we know that there's a likelihood of a town meeting actually taking place, then I would suggest reaching out to him at that point. And when we know there's a date that we're likely to meet, and say, does this still work for you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's all public, so it's not like we're hiding it from them, but I'd hate to reach out to them and say, hey, are you available on the 28th of June? And then, a week later, call them up and say, how about the 28th of February? How about the 28th of March? I think that's the way to approach it. And if we get to the point where it all just gets rolled into a special within the annual, then I guess we'll have a different conversation at that point about how we structure everything, how it all works together. And maybe we have a conversation a little different from what we normally do about the order that we take up the business. We've got we've got 30 or so articles on the annual meeting warrant as it stands right now, including the facilities project. So there's a lot of work to be done this year.
Okay.
I'll move to open and close the special town meeting warrant for January 28th.
Second,
Okay, Costa, can you call the roll?
no, but I will.
Oh, sorry, Tim. I'm sorry.
Mr. Protakis,
Yes.
Mr. Cresta,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay. The next
Actually,
item. Yep.
Brian, if I
Go ahead.
could, I guess I should have put these two items together, but item 6 is the annual town meeting.
Okay.
I don't know if Barbara has anything she wants to weigh in on with respect to the annual, but if you want to do the 2 town meeting items back to back, maybe take 6 out of order and then jump
Sure.
back
Yeah,
to
number
item
6
5.
is to take the annual vote to open the warrant for town meeting. And I know you said there's about 30 some odd items.
Before, we go to that, I just want to, Barbara, can we say to, people that even though we have this January 28th, special town meeting, that you're exercising your authority to postpone it for 30 days? Or,
What has to happen procedurally is that the constable has to post the warrant tomorrow, and I believe, Eileen, he's going to do that tomorrow, correct? Eileen?
The warrant has to be signed first before Paul can post.
Okay.
So I need the signatures, and I don't believe I have them yet. They're on my counter. The warrant's on my counter.
So as soon as you all sign the warrant, the constable will serve it. And as soon as that happens, I will issue a declaration, and then it will be posted on the Middleton website. And then it also has to be served by the constable and posted. But we can represent here, I can represent here that is my intention.
thank you.
And I just add the deadline to post is Thursday. So it has to be posted. It has to be signed and posted by Thursday.
At any particular time on Thursday?
Yeah, Costa. Give me a call. I'll tell you what time.
Because
Yeah.
I can't get there tomorrow to sign, but I
Costa,
can Thursday about 3 o'clock.
that is like a town clerk's worst nightmare. Costa, if I have to come to your house, you're signing this warrant. Paul is waiting to post. Listen, I don't want to tell you the story the last time we waited to post a warrant. My husband went into cardiac arrest. We are not waiting.
All right, well, I
That's a lot
won't
of
be back
pressure.
in town
That's a
until
lot of pressure.
probably 4:30, 5 o'clock tomorrow.
When? Oh my God. What are you doing right now, Costa?
I'm sitting in my house. Do you want to come over and I'll sign?
If I have to, I'm serious. We need to get this signed.
I'll
I'm gonna
try to
be-
get. I'll try to get.
Eileen,
tomorrow.
I'll be in the morning, probably mid-morning. I know Tim was going to come in sometime tomorrow, and we'll see.
Already done.
Tim's done.
Tim's already signed,
He's
so I'll
he's
be
a
in.
good doobie.
I'll probably be in
He's
midday
done.
tomorrow, and if need be, we'll see if we can get Rick over there sooner, as long as we have 3
We
of them.
just need 3.
Okay.
All right.
If
All
not,
right.
Eileen will-
Otherwise, I'll be banging on your door, Costa.
Okay. So we have an annual town meeting that is scheduled to be held on May 11th. I would entertain a motion to open the warrant.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, call the roll, Tim.
Mr. Protakis,
Yes.
Mr. Cresta,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay, so our warrant for our general and annual town meeting has been open for May 11th, 2021. Okay, back to Article number 5, my favorite topic, the discussion of the Water Management Act permit renewal and the status of the current order to correct, in a request that has been received to designate certain open space parcels for water supply protection.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we've talked about the Water Management Act a number of times, the order to correct. which essentially was a kind of a violation notice served on Danvers and Middleton simultaneously a couple of years ago. We've made progress on addressing the items in the order to correct. A lot of it was informational. Some of the information that DEP was relying on, it turned out was incorrect or erroneous. So we've addressed that. We've been working closely with Danvers on this, and we've in the last couple of years, we've really improved the relationship with Danvers, with Steve Bartha, my counterpart over there, and with Dave Lane and Stephen King, the folks in DPW, and the relationship that Paul Goodwin has developed with them. So it is a team approach, which is good. We're all drinking from the same bucket, essentially. We do have some things that we're each working on individually, and I just wanted to revisit some of those. And then one of the things that we can do, which is the primary reason for this item on the meeting tonight, is to designate some land that we already own as drinking water protection land. It's already under the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, so nothing will happen to it anyways. This is an additional level of protection that really serves as an assurance to DEP that we're serious to in doing what we're saying that we'll do. So, but before I get that, I'll just touch on a couple of other things that are related to that. We talked before last fall about wellhead protection. We had prepared, Katrina O'Leary had prepared a wellhead protection bylaw that was originally going to be on the 2020 annual town meeting in May. It was pushed off until when we had it in June, and then the decision was made to essentially scrape off all of the articles that weren't absolutely necessary, and really just to focus on the finance articles. So we pulled that off. We did inform DEP that what happened, and they recognize what's going on with COVID as well. So so no points off with them.
And this was
that,
this was the overlay for the water protection?
Correct. Yeah. And this surrounds the two wells that are down in the Ipswich River along Route 114. And it's a fairly small, I've been involved in other communities with wellhead protection bylaws, and often they'll take up, 2/3, 3/4 of the entire land area of the community. This is fairly distinct. It covers a portion of River Street and streets off, cuts across 114 over to Log Bridge and the Market Basket Plaza. But it doesn't really get too far west or north on Route 114. So it's fairly modest in scope. Katrina did hold a public input meeting. She invited all of the property owners in the district, in the proposed overlay district. There were only a handful that attended. She did take their input. There were some tweaks to the bylaw that were made after that, but generally it was pretty well received. So that will go forward at the annual meeting. One of the other things that Danvers does that DEP has strongly recommended that we sort of mimic is what well, it's two-part. It's enhanced water conservation. So anything that we can do to encourage conservation of water resources, and a water use mitigation plan. And those are linked. There could be some fees associated with that, so that we're adding a fee for new connections and things like that. All of that would go towards funding these mitigation efforts and conservation efforts, and those could be used to fund water saving devices in homes and things like that, or irrigation retrofits to make sure that systems shut off when it's raining. So we're working with, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, working with Danvers on that. And then related to all of that is minimizing the amount of water that we use. And again, that could be low flow devices, education, helping people better understand what they need for outdoor, for in order to grow a good lawn or keep their shrubs alive and things like that. So all of this is in the interest of getting us more water. We're running up against our withdrawal amounts under the Water Management Act permit, and with the mitigation strategy and the points that are allotted for these various things, if we're able to get those points and satisfy DEP, it allows us to potentially get more water, allow us to withdraw more water without being successful in generating those points and making those improvements. There's no likelihood that DEP will give us more water, and then obviously the long-term effect is that it strangles our economic development and our growth. So the other part of that I didn't mention is the irrigation bylaw. And I know that this was a hot topic a few years ago prior to my arrival here. There was a well bylaw irrigation, private well irrigation bylaw on the books, and then it was rescinded. And in order to have a chance to get the points that we need, we committed to bringing that back. So we're proposing to include that on the warrant for the spring as well. And and in the meantime, begin that outreach or ramp up that outreach and education that explains to residents, that there are other ways to have a green lawn and have healthy landscaping besides dumping 6 inches of irrigation water on your property every day.
I just want to be clear. I'm going to be opposed to rescinding the citizens petition bylaw that allows use of private irrigation for that purpose. I mean, I think the argument that has been made, and I'll make a DEP, and I'm honestly not shocked to hear that, discussions with the DEP started off with their understanding that they had made errors with the data that they had. Not shocked by that at all. But the reality is, we are a town of 100%, other than a small number of units on Locust Street and over near the Ferncroft, of septic systems where the water that comes into the home, unless somebody is going elsewhere during the day, is all being returned to the ground. Secondly, wells that are irrigating, that is returning right to the yard. And those wells are in many cases 300, 400, 500, 700 feet deep, significantly deeper than the watershed of where the Ipswich River Watershed District is. Secondly, is there a prohibition on private well usage for irrigation in Danvers?
Danvers is essentially 100% public water.
But if you
so
have,
I don't know if they allow irrigation wells. And Danvers is also in 2 different watershed areas. So all of Middleton is in the Ipswich River watershed. A part of Danvers is in the Ipswich, and the remainder the majority of it is in the, I think it's the North Coastal.
how much of Danvers's water comes from the Ipswich River Watershed District?
Guessing more than half,
It actually comes from Middleton.
guessing, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Andy,
No,
can
I know, good points. All valid
I
points
know.
and points that we've made. But again, it comes back to the whole idea of getting an increased allotment of water so that we can continue to grow and see economic development.
Andy, can I just ask you a question that,
Mhm.
but do we get the points for bringing the meeting? Or do we get the points only if it passes?
I'm guessing that we'll only get the points if it passes, if we actually implement. Whether they'll, if we were teetering and we brought it and we made a good faith effort and it was voted down, maybe that, tie goes to the runner, maybe kind of thing.
What
But
are
really,
other
they want to
alternatives?
see it in place. They don't want to see a perfunctory effort.
What are other alternatives to gain points rather than, I mean, is this an all or nothing? If this fails, there's no other alternative?
It's hard to get the numbers that they're looking for. They assign a lot of points to this bylaw, and so that's why
They
they've
haven't liked
been
it from the beginning, so.
that's why they've been pushing it. There's not a lot of other areas where we can gain points. So if looking at the agenda, the last part of this item was a request to dedicate certain open space parcels for water supply protection. So if you look in the packet, there's a spreadsheet with yellow highlighting.
Mhm.
I think it's the second of the highlighted pages. I think I put them in kind of out of order. But if you go to the one that has the first column on the left says parcel area in acres.
Okay.
So those 6 parcels are already in the town's ownership, or 2 of them, in fact, are part of the DCAM parcels that we're trying to get, still trying to get transferred. But those parcels, if we dedicate them as water supply parcels, water supply protection parcels, those get us 1/10 of a point per acre. So that gets us a fair number of points. There are some other points that we've received from other things that we've done, other things that we do anyways. So this is a fairly easy, I think painless way to get some points and show some seriousness on the part of the town that we want to do our part. The parcels, for the most part, can't be developed. They're either landlocked or mostly underwater or both. There's a couple of them that are down near the transfer station off of Riverview that I don't even think the section of Riverview that provides the frontage exists on the ground, and they're in the floodplain of the Ipswich. A couple of others, there's one off of DeBush that is not dry, so it doesn't really harm us to set them aside, but it does show the commitment that we're trying to make, and so that's the action. I'm not asking the board to endorse the bylaw tonight, but I would ask the board to consider this vote to designate these parcels.
No, I appreciate that. Andy, is there any recognition, or is there any effect when a 30 some odd acre parcel that was previously operated as a golf course with regular, probably daily irrigation that was happening there, would no longer happen? Does that have any positive effect on, albeit it was private wells and private water sources, but I guess technically still in the Ipswich River? watershed. I mean, and that is not a owner of the property deciding not to do so. It's no longer a golf course, and we're not going to be irrigating that like a golf course.
Yeah, so that's a good point, Brian. And that one, there was a well there at the golf course that that the operators used. It was a licensed, regulated well. If I recall correctly, anything that generates more than 100,000 gallons per day is considered a public or a semi-public well, and so is regulated. So it may be that we can sort of grab the credit for that and roll that into our Water Management Act renewal. I'll make that inquiry.
Okay, good.
We've also made the argument that that we've set aside, that we've acquired that 52 acres, and of that 52, probably 30 of it
Yeah, so I was saying
is not going to be developed and is not going to be intensively used like it was before.
surely not irrigated.
Yeah, they haven't granted us credit on that yet. We're going to continue to work that and work some other avenues. I think they gave us credit for the meadow off of East Street that we acquired some years ago, because that is in the it's pretty close to the river. It is protected by a conservation restriction, and so it is not something that is potentially developable.
Okay.
Can we add that to the water protection list of parcels?
Because there's a conservation restriction on there, it doesn't need to be added.
Okay, why don't I,
Okay, so the list that's in the packet, is that the sum total of parcels that we already own that can go into this?
Of the ones that are not already sufficiently protected, yes.
Okay,
all right, I'd make a motion that we transfer the property as listed into the water supply protection.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
second,
Tim?
Okay, Mr. Pantakis,
yes.
Mr. Cresta,
Yes?
and myself, yes.
Yes, that passes unanimously.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Number 9 on the agenda is to either appoint or reappoint members to the Bylaw Review Committee for certain terms. And the 4 candidates are Jeffrey Garber for a term through June 30th, 2022. Megan Walter for a term through June 30th, 2024. Richard Cardinale through a June 30th, 2024. And our ex officio member, the town clerk extraordinaire, Eileen Twist, for a term through June 30th, 2022. So I'd entertain a motion.
So moved,
Second,
Tim?
all right, Mr. Pantakis,
yes.
Mr. Cresta,
Yes?
and myself, yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you to those individuals for serving and continuing to serve. The next is individuals that need to be appointed for a interim plumbing and gas inspector for a term that will run through June 30th, 2021, and that is Gary Paul, as well as an alternate plumbing inspector with a term to run through June 30th, 2021, and that is Todd Moreski.
So moved,
Second,
Tim?
all right, Mr. Pantakis,
yes.
Mr. Cresta,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is number 9 is the discussion of a municipal tax relief committee and a potential call for members. Andy?
So we have had a municipal tax relief committee for a number of years. Initially set up in 1999, I think. May have been recent, a little more recently than that. Maybe the statute was adopted at that time. It's been sort of dormant the last few years, and with with things being the way they are and some of the challenges that people are facing, it made sense to reconstitute the committee and make it available for people who may need help. Currently, the The committee consists of Jeff Garber with a term through 2022, Bob Murphy with a term through 2023, and Belinda Young as our treasurer collector as the ex officio. And so really we're looking for, looking to add,
How
sort
many
of
members
reconstitute the
historically?
committee and get new
Yeah, when
bodies.
it was active. How many members?
5.
5.
Yeah.
So we're looking for either those that may want to be reappointed other than the ex officio that will still stay based on her
So,
role.
so we need 2. It's actually 5, including the ex officio.
Okay, so
We
5.
need 2 members and
And, you know, the Jeff as chair of the Board of Assessors, you know, is automatic, whoever is chair is automatically on this, you know, committee, as well as, you know, the treasurer. I mean, I was, you know, part of the group that asked town meeting to adopt, you know, this provision. I've donated to that over the years. And, you know, given the circumstances that we find ourselves in, I think it's a great opportunity to offer some assistance to some people that may be in need. So I would, you know, I'm very much interested in filling one of the vacancies. So I will send an official email of interest to Andy tomorrow.
And the board may consider that, Costa. So, Andy, you'll get this up on the town's website, maybe blast this out in our email piece, and include a little bit of a summary of historically what the committee has done and really the importance and, you know, I think the growing understanding of the conditions and or at least the economic conditions today, this would make sense. And
yeah,
always another good opportunity to, I mean, let's be realistic. We have a senior and a veterans work-off program that is maybe not as easy to participate now, given COVID and others. So there, you know, there could be some folks that that this would be positively affected.
mhm.
Okay. So do we think, you know, probably not the next meeting, but the meeting after that, we may have at least the beginning to start appointing?
Yeah, maybe as soon as next meeting.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you for that. Item number 10. This is becoming a regular part of our meetings, and I really appreciate it. It shows the constant and the long time commitment to both residents and businesses in this community to support this town and support more specifically the food pantry that is doing some amazing work over at the Council on Aging facility. So we have before us this evening 6 very generous donations that we need to approve. One for $500 from Richard and Jean Beck, one for $2,000 from Bostic, another for $3,500 from Bostic, $1,000 from Margaret Lee and Christopher Sansucci, as well as $500 from Marianne and John Erickson, and $1,000 from Ferncroft Holdings LLC, doing business as the Ferncroft Country Club. And all of these donations are to be directed to the Middleton Food Pantry. I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we accept with thanks to the people making them.
Second,
Okay, Tim.
Mr. Takis,
Yes.
Mr. Cresta,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay, thank you. Before we move to the final topic, which is executive session, I'm not sure if there's any new business that Tim, you, me, I don't have anything. Costa?
I just want to let you know that tomorrow Masco's budget subcommittee is meeting to start talking about the coming budget, and then on Thursday the policy subcommittee is meeting to continue discussions of possible changes to the district agreements, being using a multi-year average, of enrollment to determine assessment, and to possibly change from a quarterly to a monthly payment of assessment. So if anyone is interested, go to the Masco website and get the Zoom information to join the meeting.
Yeah, I think the monthly obviously for cash flow makes a big difference for the school district. I'd be interested to know what that means to our cash flow.
Well, I had asked Andy, to speak with, Sarah and Belinda, and, for Middleton, it has really no impact. The other two towns were checking with their, financial folks. And, if it's a similar situation, then that, it becomes, fairly easy amendment to make.
Yeah, I think it has a very positive impact on Masco's cash flow. Okay. Well, that's good. Okay, so the final item is executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to discuss in respect to contract negotiations with the police chief candidate. So we will not be returning to open session, and we will be adjourning at the close of executive session. So before we call the roll, I would state that we will be entering executive session. When we do exit, we will be exiting in the memory, in honor of the memory of Joe Pascucci. So Tim, if you could call the roll.
Mr. Prentakis,
Yes.
Mr. Krasno,
Yes.
Mr. Hooton, yes. Ms. Van Nien. Extended time.
Okay,
Executive session.
we'll be entering executive session. Thank you.